You're scrolling through personal finance content at 2 a.m. and you keep seeing these people talk about living off their investments, about reaching financial independence, about that magic moment when your money makes more money than you do at your job. And every time you think the same thing. That's for rich people. That's for someone who has $500,000 already saved. That could never be me. But here's the thing. What if I told you the actual number to start living off compound interest is way, way lower than you think, and that you're probably a lot closer to financial independence than your brain is letting you believe? My name is Guy, and I spend way too much time thinking about the exact dollar amount where your money starts working harder than you do. If you're someone who's convinced you need to be a millionaire before investing, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Look, I need to shatter something right now. There's this pervasive myth in personal finance that compound interest only matters when you have huge amounts of money invested. That if you're starting with $5,000 or $10,000, it's basically pointless because the returns are so small. And I get why people think this. When you plug $5,000 into a compound interest calculator and see you'll make like $500 in a year, it feels like nothing. It feels like you're wasting your time. But this is where most people completely misunderstand how compound growth actually works. They're looking at the wrong metric. They're asking, how much money will I make this year? When the real question, the only question that actually matters is, how much money will I have in 10 years, in 20 years, in 30 years? Because compound interest doesn't care about impressing you in year one. It's playing a completely different game. Here's what most people don't realize. There's a specific dollar amount, a threshold, where compound interest stops being theoretical and starts becoming a real, tangible force in your life, where you can actually feel it working, where it starts replacing your income, and that number is shockingly low. We're going to calculate it together in this video, and I think it's going to change how you think about every dollar you save from this point forward. But first, we need to talk about why your brain is lying to you about small amounts of money. There's this cognitive bias called the linearity bias. Your brain assumes that if you invest $1,000 and make $100 in a year, then investing $10,000 will make you $1,000 in a year, and that's the end of the story. Linear thinking. But compound growth isn't linear, it's exponential. And your brain is terrible at understanding exponential growth. There's a famous thought experiment about this. If I offered you a penny that doubled every day for 30 days, or $1 million cash right now, which would you take? Most people instinctively say the $1 million. But the penny that doubles on day 30, that penny is worth over 5 million. That's exponential growth. And that's what's happening with your investments, except it's happening slowly, quietly, over decades instead of days. So let's get to the actual number. What's the lowest amount you need to live off compounding? To answer this, we need to start with how much money you actually need to live. And this is where it gets interesting because the answer is different for everyone, but the math is the same. Let's start with a really conservative example. Let's say you need $30,000 per year to cover your basic expenses. That's $2,500 a month. That's not living lavishly. That's covering rent, food, basic utilities, transportation, healthcare, just the essentials. Now, here's the rule that the financial independence community has been using for decades. It's called the 4% rule. The 4% rule says that you can safely withdraw 4% of your investment portfolio every year, adjusted for inflation, and never run out of money. This rule comes from a famous study called the Trinity Study, which analyzed historical stock market returns and found that a portfolio of 50% stocks and 50% bonds could sustain a 4% withdrawal rate for 30 years in 96% of historical scenarios. Now, you might be thinking, okay, Guy, but what does that actually mean in dollars? Here's the math. If you need $30,000 per year, divide that by 0.04. That's $750,000. That's your number. That's how much you need invested to live off compound interest at $30,000 per year. And I know what you're thinking. Guy, you just said the number was shockingly low. $750,000 is not shockingly low. That's a huge amount of money. And you're right, that does sound like a lot. But here's where it gets really interesting. That $750,000 isn't the number you need to start benefiting from compound interest. It's the number where you can live entirely off compound interest without working at all. But there's a whole spectrum of financial freedom between zero and complete retirement. And this is what almost nobody talks about. Let me show you what I mean. Let's say you currently make $50,000 a year at your job. And let's say you manage to invest enough money that your investments generate $10,000 per year in growth. That's only $833 per month. That doesn't sound life-changing, right? But think about what that actually means. That's $10,000 per year you don't have to earn through labor. That means instead of needing to make $50,000 at your job, you only need to make $40,000, which means you could take a lower stress job, you could work part-time, you could negotiate for more flexibility. You could take a pay cut to do something you actually care about. That $10,000 from investments just bought you options. It bought you freedom. And it only required $250,000 invested. Now, I know what you're thinking. Guy, $250,000 is still a massive amount of money. How is this the shockingly low number you promised? Stay with me, because we're about to break down how you actually get there, and it's way more achievable than you think. Let's say you're 25 years old and you start investing $500 per month. That's $6,000 per year. Now, historically, the stock market returns about 10% per year on average. That's before inflation. After adjusting for inflation, it's closer to 7% real return. Let's be conservative and use 7%. If you invest $500 per month for 20 years at 7% average annual return by age 45, you'll have approximately $262,000. That's enough to generate about $10,500 per year at the 4% withdrawal rate. You just replaced $10,500 of your income with passive investment returns. And you did it by saving $500 a month for 20 years. But here's where the math gets absolutely wild. Let's say you don't touch that money. You keep working, you keep investing, and you let that $262,000 keep compounding. In 10 more years, at age 55, with no additional contributions, that $262,000 grows to approximately $515,000. You just doubled your money by doing literally nothing. That's now generating $20,600 per year in safe withdrawal income. This is the power of compound interest that nobody explains properly. It's not about the returns in year 1 or year 5. It's about the exponential curve that happens in years 20, 25, 30. The money you invest in your 20 has 30 to 40 years to compound, and those final 10 years do more work than the first 20 years combined. Let me give you another example that makes this even clearer. Let's say you want to generate just $500 per month from your investments. That's $6,000 per year. Using the 4% rule, you'd need $150,000 invested. Now, $500 per month doesn't sound like much, but think about what that covers. That's your car payment, or your health insurance, or your rent in a lower cost of living area. That's one major expense completely covered by your investments forever. And here's the thing. If $150,000 is absolutely achievable for most people who are working full-time and being intentional about saving, if you invest $700 per month for 12 years at 7% return, you'll hit $150,000. 12 years. That's it. And at that point, you have $500 per month coming in passively for the rest of your life. Now, let's talk about the psychology of why this feels impossible, even though the math says it's totally doable. There are 3 main psychological barriers that stop people from building wealth through compound interest, and I see them all the time. Barrier number 1 is present bias. This is the tendency to overvalue immediate rewards and undervalue future rewards. When you're deciding between spending $50 on dinner tonight or investing that $50 for your future, your brain screams at you to take the dinner. Because dinner is tangible, it's now, it's certain, The investment is abstract, it's decades away, it's uncertain. Your brain is wired to pick dinner every single time. But here's what your brain isn't calculating: that $50 invested at age 25, growing at 7% until age 65, becomes $749. That one dinner decision, repeated consistently, is the difference between financial independence and working until you die. And your brain just cannot process that trade off naturally. You have to override it with knowledge and systems. Barrier number two is the all or nothing fallacy. People think that if they can't invest $1,000 per month, then investing $100 per month is pointless. But this is completely wrong. Investing $100 per month is infinitely more valuable than investing $0 per month. Let me prove it. If you invest $100 per month from age 25 to age 65, at 7% return, you'll have $262,000. That's enough to generate $10,500 per year using the 4% rule. That's not nothing. That's a real, meaningful amount of money that could cover health insurance or property taxes or groceries. The person who said, well, I can only afford $100, so why bother, ends up at age 65 with zero. The person who invested the $100 ends up with $262,000. The difference is life-changing. Barrier number three is complexity aversion. People think investing is complicated, scary, risky, requires expertise. And the financial industry kind of loves this myth because it keeps people dependent on expensive financial advisors. But the truth is, for most people, investing should be incredibly boring and simple. Buy low-cost index funds, contribute regularly, don't touch it for decades. That's it. That's the whole strategy. A target date retirement fund or a total stock market index fund through Vanguard, Fidelity, or Schwab will do 95% of the work for you. You don't need to pick individual stocks. You don't need to time the market. You don't need to read financial statements. You just need to consistently put money into a diversified index fund and let time do the heavy lifting. Now, let's get really practical. Let's figure out your personal number. The lowest amount you need to live off compounding depends on your expenses. So let's do the math together. Take out your phone right now and open a calculator. I'll wait. First, calculate your annual expenses. Not your income, your actual expenses. Look at your bank statements for the last 3 months. Add up everything you spent, multiply by 4. That's your annual expense number. Let's say it's $40,000 per year. Now, divide that by 0.04. That's your full financial independence number. In this case, 1 million. That's how much you'd need to never work again. But now let's calculate your partial freedom numbers. Divide your annual expenses by 12. That's your monthly expenses. Let's say $3,333 per month. Now, what if your investments covered just $500 of that? You'd need $150,000 invested. What if they covered $1,000 per month? You'd need $300,000. What if they covered $2,000 per month? You'd need $600,000. These are your milestone numbers. These are the points where you start feeling compound interest working in your life. And here's the beautiful thing. Each milestone gets easier to hit than the last one because your money is compounding. Getting from $0 to $150,000 might take 12 years, but getting from $150,000 to $300,000 might only take 8 more years because that first $150,000 is working for you. This is why time is your most valuable asset when it comes to investing. The earlier you start, the more you leverage compound interest. A 25-year-old investing $300 per month will have more at age 65 than a 35-year-old investing $600 per month. Starting early is more powerful than investing more. Let me give you one more mind-blowing example. Let's say you start investing at age 20 and you invest $200 per month until age 30. That's 10 years, $24,000 total contributed. Then you stop completely. You never invest another dollar, but you leave that money invested until age 65. At 7% return, you'll have about $379,000 at retirement. Now, let's say someone else waits until age 30 to start investing. They invest $200 per month from age 30 to age 65. That's 35 years, $84,000 total contributed. At 7% return, they'll have about $365,000 at retirement. The person who invested for 10 years and stopped ends up with more money than the person who invested for 35 years. That's compound interest. That's time in the market mattering more than timing the market or amount invested. The earlier dollars compound for longer and do exponentially more work. So, what's the actual lowest amount you need? Here's my answer. The lowest amount you need to start benefiting from compound interest is whatever you can invest right now, today, consistently, because every dollar you invest today is a dollar that gets 30, 40, 50 years to compound. And that dollar will do more work than you can possibly imagine. But if you want a concrete number, here's my target for most people. Aim for $150,000 invested as your first major milestone. At 4% withdrawal, that's $6,000 per year or $500 per month in passive income. That's enough to meaningfully change your life. That's enough to feel compound interest working for you. That's enough to buy you options and flexibility. And here's how you get there. If you're starting from zero and you invest $600 per month at 7% average return, you'll hit $150,000 in about 13 years. If you can invest $400 per month, it'll take about 18 years. If you can only invest $200 per month, it'll take about 28 years. But you'll get there. And once you do, you have that $500 per month for the rest of your life. Now, here's the part nobody talks about. Once you hit that first milestone, the second one comes way faster because that $150,000 is now working for you. If you keep investing $600 per month, your next $150,000 only takes about 8 more years instead of 13. The third $150,000 takes about 6 years. It accelerates. This is the exponential curve. Let me give you the action steps. Step 1, open an investment account today, not tomorrow, not next week, today. Vanguard, Fidelity, Schwab, any major brokerage. It takes 15 minutes. Step 2, set up automatic contributions. Whatever amount you can afford, even if it's $50 per month, automate it. You will never miss money you never see. This is the single most important habit for building wealth. Step 3, invest in a simple, diversified index fund. A target date fund based on when you plan to retire is perfect for beginners. Or a total stock market index fund like VTSAX or FSKAX. Don't overthink this. Simple beats complicated. Step 4, increase your contributions every time you get a raise. Got a 3% raise at work? Increase your investment contributions by 2%. You'll never feel the difference in your paycheck, but your future self will be exponentially wealthier. Step 5, never touch it. The biggest mistake people make is pulling money out of investments when life happens. Build a separate emergency fund of $1,000 to $5,000 in a savings account for unexpected expenses. That way, your investments can stay invested and keep compounding. Now, let's address the biggest objection I always hear. Guy, I can't afford to invest anything right now. I'm living paycheck to paycheck. I have debt. This doesn't apply to me. And look, I get it. If you genuinely cannot afford to invest even $20 per month, then your first priority is increasing your income or decreasing your expenses until you can. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people who say they can't afford to invest are actually saying they haven't made it a priority. Americans spend an average of $3,000 per year on coffee, restaurants, and convenience food. That's $250 per month. If you invested half of that, just $125 per month for 30 years at 7% return, you'd have $151,000. That's one major life expense covered forever because you made coffee at home instead of going to Starbucks. I'm not saying don't enjoy your life. I'm not saying live like a monk and never have fun. But I am saying be intentional. Decide what actually matters to you. Because every dollar you spend is a dollar that won't compound for 30 years. Every dollar you invest is a dollar that will turn into $5 or $7 or $10 over your lifetime. That's the trade-off. And most people never think about it that way. Here's the final truth I want to leave you with. The lowest amount you need to live off compounding isn't actually about the dollar amount at all. It's about the mindset shift. It's about understanding that you are not trading your time for money forever. You are building a system where your money trades time for you. Every $150,000 you accumulate buys you $500 per month in freedom forever. That's not just money, that's time, that's options. That's the ability to say no to jobs you hate, bosses who disrespect you, work that drains your soul. That's the ability to say yes to part time work, to creative projects, to spending time with your kids, to living life on your terms. Compound interest is the closest thing to magic that exists in personal finance. It's the one force that lets regular people, not millionaires, not trust fund kids, but regular people with regular incomes achieve financial independence. But it requires two things: time and consistency. The earlier you start and the more consistently you contribute, the more powerful it becomes. You don't need to be rich to start investing. You need to start investing to become rich. And the lowest amount you need is whatever you have right now, today, that you can commit to investing consistently for the next 20, 30, 40 years. If this video changed how you think about investing, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this with one person who needs to hear it. Because the earlier someone learns this, the more time they have to let compound interest work its magic. Your future self is watching what you do today. Make them proud. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.